and welcome back. My name's David. For those that are new to the channel, today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. No Ren reaction today. Sorry to disappoint, but I'll be back with some more Ren very soon. Today, because I've got a little bit of time, I just wanted to try and answer some of the questions that you guys have been asking me on the comment sections. And I'm really appreciative. Thank you very much. I had some really good questions and good comments. Now, what I probably should have done is take note of who asked me these questions. I'll make a mental note for next time, but I do remember some of the questions. And I'm just going to try and answer a few of them. One of the questions that I was asked was, how do you speak to your doctor or any other health professional or whatever it might be about your health conditions? Because I've had a few people say that they feel that sometimes they're not really being listened to. So what's the best way to communicate? Now, first of all, your health professional, in a perfect world, should be able to kind of listen and assess and ascertain what you really want, no matter how you communicate that. But let's just assume we're not in that world. And what do you need to do? Well, where I work at the moment with the people with chronic health conditions, mainly lung conditions, is I do talk to people about how do you communicate with health professionals. And one thing I do say to them is you need to be very succinct, but have a plan. Now, if you want to discuss with your doctor, 3 or 4 things, let's say you have multiple health conditions, and there might be a whole list of things you want to talk about. Could be symptoms. You might have 2 or 3 symptoms due to something. It might be a change of medication. It might be whatever it might be. Now, I tend to tell people that if you have an appointment with your doctor and it's going to be a couple of weeks or a couple of months, the chances are if you've got to ask them any more than 2 or 3 things, you're probably going to forget. So I think it's really important to have a list of what's important. I want to talk to the doctor about 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is. So you've got your list so that you don't forget, because a lot of people will go and see a doctor, a specialist, or whoever else it might be, physio, doesn't matter who it might be. They often will get the appointment, leave the appointment, get home and go, oh gosh, I've forgotten to ask this question and that question. So write your questions down, and it also helps you to be a lot more succinct. So when people do talk to health professionals, try and make it to the point. Just to make it easy as possible. Hi, doctor, whoever it might be, these are my concerns. These are the symptoms, these are my health conditions, A, B, C, and D. These are the symptoms that are concerning me, whatever it might be. These symptoms are, this symptom is a new symptom, this symptom's not a new symptom. This symptom's getting worse over time. Or medication, I've changed this medication, now I'm getting these side effects, or I don't feel as well as when I was on this medication. And I think that just helps a lot. Especially if you're seeing someone that's maybe new to you, it's just so much easier just to get that real detailed information without a lot of the overarching conversation. It's kind of almost not like telling them your life story, just getting to the point. This is my problem, this happened, blah, 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 blah. This is what I'm concerned about. So just making it really detailed and almost in point form. I tend to find that works very well with most people. Having said that, communication in health is very important, and health professionals, like everybody, not just health professionals, anybody that works with the public, should have better communication skills. But just to help you, as I said, at the moment, I can't change the world, but I can help individuals, hopefully. And I think that is some pretty good advice. Work out exactly what you want to ask the health professional, write it down and ask it very clearly. And potentially if you have any follow-up questions, but just maybe not tell them everything and things that aren't really relevant or related to what's going on. Especially if they're busy and maybe they don't know you. It's just really helpful just to have those points. That's where I tell people who ask me that same question about speaking to a doctor or a health professional. So I hope that helps. I've been asked another question on how do I cope? I guess, working in hospitals and various settings, sometimes well, quite often you see some pretty terrible things, or you work with people for a long period of time who end up passing away and so forth, and how do you cope? That's a good question. And I don't think it's just related to people who work in health. This can be something related to people out there, paramedics, police, people working in the army, anywhere really. My personal advice on coping is to have a clear separation between personal and professional. Now that can be easier said than done. Now what I mean by that is when I'm at work, obviously I have a very professional side, and my personal attitudes and my personality comes into that. They're not two completely separate and distinct entities. But I do have to draw the line. There has to be that professionalism. So for example, if I get someone that I'm looking after or educating or whatever, depending on what role I'm doing at the time, I used to, when I was younger, do a lot of hands-on hospital work, patients. Now I do more with education, educating patients, taking people in the community, teaching them about their conditions, their medications, going to doctors' clinics, things like that. But I guess if you took things too personally, if you didn't have that separation, I mean, I would probably see or speak to 1,000 patients a year, I would say. Now, out of that 1,000 patients, every single one of them has a chronic health condition. So if you became too emotionally involved in everybody, how long do you think you'd last in the job? I mean, you wouldn't. I mean, after a year on the job, you'd have a breakdown. It would ruin your personal life. I mean, people that can't separate work from their personal life often can have a lot of troubles at home. I mean, I would be a very miserable person to live with, my wife and children, if I let my work, if I got too emotional about my work, or if I took things too personally. I hope that makes sense. You need to have a certain level of compassion when you're in these fields, otherwise you shouldn't be in the field. Simple as that, as far as I'm concerned. But you also have to have a separation, because if you don't, not only will it destroy you, it will destroy your family, but it'll also make you less effective in your job. If I had a breakdown every time one of my patients got sick or died, or if a police officer, didn't relax after work, if they took things too personally, or a paramedic or whatever it might be, they couldn't function in their work. Their work would suffer. So I remember when I was back on the wards, I'd have 10 patients on a shift, and quite often, sometimes one may pass away or die. Now, it's sad. I feel for them. I feel probably more for their family, because they're the ones that are left behind. But if I take it on too much on board, then I'm absolutely useless for those other 9 patients. So you do have to draw the line somewhere. And I hope that makes sense. Now, for me, everybody's different, but for me, what I find is first of all, realizing that you do need to separate work and personal life. I think that's important. Little things to relax to. For me, it was, for an hour or so after work, I'd go to my room, I'd listen to music, I might watch a comedy, I might have a workout, I might do whatever it is. Just something to completely get my mind off work. Then my batteries were recharged, and then I move forward. That can be a little bit more difficult, especially now that I'm married with kids. You can't really get home from work and say, oh, I'm just going to spend an hour to myself, because that just doesn't work. So you learn what coping strategies work for you. For me, it was relaxation. It was watching a TV show or listening to music or having a workout. That is how I recharged my batteries from a good day or a bad day. It's just something that I used to do. Now, I guess coming home, taking my dog for a walk, playing with my kids, having a workout, I've learnt that can be a strategy that I can use. But I do think it is important, though, to be able to draw the line between the two. Otherwise, I've seen healthcare workers who haven't made it, who haven't lasted long term, because they could not separate the personal life from the professional life, and they would bring all the grief and that home, and it destroyed them. So, excuse me. So you need to keep the compassion and the care, but you do need to separate the professional from the personal. And everybody needs to find their own way to do that. I don't have all the answers, but what I've said works for me. Another question I've been asked recently is, I've had a couple of questions about long COVID. A few people have commented the fact that they have long COVID, and they've had it for quite a while, and they're sort of wondering, you know, do I know much about it or anything like that? Really good timing, because as I've stated to people that have watched my other videos, I do work in chronic care. I work in pulmonary rehab, so people with chronic lung conditions. But for the next couple of months, I'm joining another team at one of the major hospitals in Sydney, and we're starting up a long COVID clinic. I'll only be there a few months, try and get things started, and then probably go back to my other role. So it is good timing. So long COVID is a thing. It does affect many, many people. We're still learning about it. So it seems to affect people in different ways. Depending on the strain of COVID. So a lot of people that had the Delta variant 18 months ago, whenever it was, tended to suffer a lot more from breathlessness when they had long COVID. So the Omicron variant, the one that's around now and sort of been around for the last year or so, tends to give a lot of people the symptoms of like chronic fatigue. So I've had many people come through pulmonary rehab who literally just, you know, a year after having COVID, still couldn't go back to work. These are people, you know, in their 40s and 50s who were just too tired, who just couldn't do it. So it is definitely a thing, and hopefully we'll get a few more answers. There's a lot of work going into it, and I'm really hoping we can get this clinic up and running. But general advice, depending what your symptoms are, if you get more breathless, if you got fatigue, they're the ones that I mainly saw. But there is some neurological defects on some people. So that's why in our team we're now getting a neurologist and an immunologist and a few other people. So I'm not going to give you too much detailed answers, but wherever you are and wherever you're watching this video, if long COVID is an issue for you, it would be interesting for you to see whether you do have like a pulmonary rehab clinic where you are. Now I know there are not a lot of them about, but for those living in, you know, outside of Australia, I'm not sure whether you have many of these facilities or not. So they're basically rehab for people with lung conditions. But we picked up long COVID as soon as it started, so I'm not sure what's happening in other areas and other countries. But as long as it's safe to do so, and you know, a doctor has agreed that you're medically stable, we tend to try and get people back to some very light exercise. They're for the ones where it's fatigue is the main issue. Don't push it too hard, but we want to try and get you back to doing things and get you back to your normal life. But look, if there are other issues like neurological issues, if there's maybe a little bit of confusion, if there's other things like that, then you really need to be seen by a medical team. It's really, I really can't give advice on treatment. Every individual is different. All I can say is that there is a lot of work going into long COVID at the moment because there are a lot of people that had COVID a year or more ago and they just have not recovered. So I'm sorry that's not a great answer, not a long detailed answer, but it's definitely a work in progress. And if you do have long COVID, you're not alone. There are many people that have this. So sorry about the inconclusive answer on that. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do today because, as you know, I just start to waffle. So hopefully I'll be back really soon with another Ren reaction and maybe to answer some more questions. So I do apologise for those that did ask me questions and I didn't write down your name. I should have done that, and I'll do that for next time. But I'm getting heaps of questions, so hopefully I can, you know, provide you with a little bit of information that may help the odd person here and there. But as always, thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you later. Bye.